I just found them, guys. I just found the hogs. They're in front of me about maybe 70, 80 yards. Found them first morning on public land. That's awesome. Let's see if we can get in for a shot. Welcome to Florida. When most people think of the Sunshine State, they imagine beaches and resorts, theme parks, or perhaps even miles of orange groves. When you melt away from the hustle of the cities, you discover miles of endless forest and swampland filled with snakes and gators, deer and turkeys, a gentle sea cow named Manatee, even bears and big cats, and of course, wild hogs.
Smoked that one.
On this adventure, we'll be taking you for a hog hunt on public land and teaching you what to look for in case you find yourself in the scrubs and marshes of Central Florida.
That one's toast right there. That one is toast.
If you're new to hunting around here, a lot of folks would see this and think that this was fresh hog rooting. But it's real little, you can see, compared to my bow tip. It's just armadillo. So a lot of folks would stop and think, oh man, there's a hog in the area, I'm gonna hunt over here. It's just armadillos. Hog rooting is gonna be unmistakable. It's gonna be a lot bigger. So if you're not used to seeing the armadillo rooting around, you might mistake it for hogs. I'm slipping through this area a little slower and quieter because I know that there's been a lot of hogs in here in the past, and normally I cover a lot of ground as fast as I can, but in this scenario I actually want to take my time. This is my best spot to head off to first thing in the morning. So we're going to take our time. And I just heard something before I turned on the camera. Over here, it sounded like it was running through the brush, but it could have been a squirrel. I've seen a lot of hogs in here over the years. Usually if there's hogs in the area, usually you're going to see some sign along water's edges. You'll see tracks in the mud or rooting. And it's also important, especially on your first morning hunt, to stop and do quite a bit of listening. Listen for them grunting or rooting or squealing in the distance. So here's big hickory nuts. Especially in September. It's getting pretty late for it now, but I suppose if they're hungry they would eat them. But you'll hear them, I mean, just absolutely chomping these things at distances. Hear them breaking them with their teeth, which is crazy. That's why a lot of hogs end up with busted teeth. But that's one of the reasons that this place probably holds so many, all the hickories and hickory nuts. But I said it's got such easy access to the road, it just gets pushed out all the time. Stopping and listening. I don't need to traipse all through where their bed and stuff is. If they're bedded, all I'm going to do is blow them out. But I don't see any sign in here anyway. But I can just listen. And if there's hogs within 100 yards of here that are up moving around, I'll hear them. You'll hear them brushing palmettos or fighting or feeding. So I've been standing here for a little bit and I haven't heard anything. Like I said, I don't have much further to go. There was one day that I came in and I looked down. Used to be able to see down it a lot better before it grew up. And there was a hog down here by the water feeding. And So I ran up here and I got up on it, and I got up on it somewhere in this area, and I wandered all the way back into the area that starts to bed. And at that point I had my big camera, my DSLR camera, on a tripod, and that's all I had with me. So I'm trying to get a tripod set out and get the camera pointed that direction. And I got in 10 yards with its head behind the palmettos, and I had the perfect 10-yard broadside shot. And I'm sitting here monkeying with this dang camera, and eventually it saw me and took off.
They literally came around the corner, and at least one of them is still back there. Yeah, I mean, I really boogered that up. I love this camera, but it is, especially in these dry leaves, it's impossible.
But I had it dead, and it's like, that was the day that I decided no more trying to set up tripods while I'm hunting. I was like, that's it. That cost me a really, really good opportunity because I was too worried about the camera. But anyway, I'm gonna start working my way out of here, and we'll hit the next spot. Like I said, there's enough. We were over there on that side a while back, and then you can hear the road. But realistically, if you're out here in the first morning spot, you're trying to find hogs that are up moving around, and you'll hear them. You know, like I said, you could be 100 yards when it's quiet in the morning, and typically you're going to hear them crashing through palmettos or fighting or feeding or something. They're not terribly quiet. I mean, they can be, but, and like I said, it's not going to do me any good to walk through the bedding areas. Like I said, I don't see any fresh sign, and if I just walk through the bedding areas, then if there are any that have just settled in here in the last night or two, I'm just blowing them out anyway. I've been in this exact spot one day and see no sign and see no hogs, and just swing back through the second day and actually get on a group of hogs in here. So, I mean, this is one of the reasons that I really like this little spot. The problem is it's very close to the road and easily accessible to everyone, but the hogs really like it, so they just keep coming back. So I'll keep coming back too, but time to start picking up the pace and doing a little bit more ground covering to see what we can find. All right, this one's in close proximity to the little pond we just checked first thing this morning, and it's a little bit more of a walk, so same hogs sometimes can bump around between the same areas. This is a much bigger pond. Sometimes it has water, sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes there's a ton of hog sign around it, and sometimes there's not a lick. I've been in here and seen this entire place that we're looking at completely tilled up, especially in the off season that happens. But I've come in here to where there's not any ground that's not turned over because there's been that many hogs. But yeah, as soon as hunting season starts and guys are in here in deer season or shooting hogs or whatever, then everything starts getting messed up. All right, I'm gonna give you guys the rundown on how I hunt hogs on public land here in Florida. And I'll try to make it as concise as possible, but this video is really gonna be to teach you guys that are coming down to Florida. I get a ton of messages, okay, so let's just start there. I get a lot of messages from people that are saying, man, I really want to go down and hunt hogs. Is there opportunities on public land, and where's the best places to go, and how do you do that? Now's a great time to tell you guys that the video that I put out last week was more of a deep dive on the gear, and then all the license information, location information, time of year information. I'll have a video about that. I'll put the thumbnail up on the screen, and I'll even link it down into the description so you can go find that video. So if you're really serious about hunting public land in Florida, that video is going to help you out a ton. So that's at least how you're going to figure out where you want to go. And there's a lot of different management areas, so Again, I've found hogs on a lot of them. Now, where I'm specifically hunting today, and I'm not going to give obviously specific locations and whatnot, but some folks will know just because they know kind of where I live or whatever, that maybe they recognize that they're here in Florida. But this area that I'm hunting today is not really known for having a lot of hogs. It's very dry and it's high, a lot of pines, open country. There are some hogs in here, and I'll at least explain how to hunt an area like this, because you're probably not going to know what the terrain's really like or how many hogs are in the area until you get to a management area. So you're going to have some places that are going to be more high and dry with hogs few and far between, and then you're going to hit some places that are just, there's water everywhere and there could be hogs everywhere. And I'm going to at least be able to cover both of those, kind of like polar opposites of what you're going to be looking for, and I'll be able to cover that in this video. But where I'm hunting today is more of one of the high and dry type of areas. And so the reason that I am hunting here, even though it's not very good for hunting hogs overall, is this place is only 12 minutes from my house. So I have spent a lot of time in these woods, and I've actually killed more hogs in here than I have on any other piece of public land, simply because it's been so close to my house. I'll get up in the morning like I did this morning, go right to a spot that has been good for me in the past, and I'll hunt that, and then I can go home and I can get back to work. So I've just simply spent a lot of time here, but it's not a very good place. I would not recommend that people just come here to hunt hogs. But how I hunt this, and this is going to be important to you guys, is how I hunt this place is, if you get out a map and you find that it's dry and you're not seeing a lot of sign, and of course in this video we're going to specifically show you the sign to look for and what not to look for. There's no sense in hunting these things like deer, where you're gonna pick a spot, this one looks okay, and then you spend all day slowly creeping around or putting up a tree stand. The chances of you getting in on hogs doing that, relatively slim. You can get lucky doing it, but typically you're going to want to cover a lot of ground, and especially the distance between wet spots, you're going to want to cover that ground as fast as possible. In most areas, I would say you're okay to get around with a two-wheel drive, like a rental or whatever, but some places that you're going to go to can get pretty nasty. So four-wheel drive certainly doesn't hurt, but a lot of times you're still going to have pretty decent access even with two-wheel drive on dirt roads. But plan on spending quite a bit of time in the vehicle until you start finding those pockets of where those hogs are going to be. They can be anywhere. They can be in some of these drier areas, especially as season progresses, because they're getting pushed around everywhere. But hogs generally want to be around a water source. So I pull out a map if I'm going to go somewhere different. Now obviously I know where I'm going here, I don't need to pull out a map, but that's how I found all of these spots originally. I would pull out a map, something like Google Maps or whatever, and I can kind of zoom in, and I'm looking for little pockets of water, little ponds, but then I'm going to hop from wet spot to wet spot, and I'm going to check it for sign about as fast as I can, and then I'm going to move on to the next one. So like today, day one, I started off by saying, okay, I'm going to go to a spot that I have seen a lot of hogs, or I've actually shot a lot of hogs in there, more than any other spot. Let me check that one first, and if I don't see any, I'm going to hit the road. So even as I'm driving here now, I'm looking for new places that could be rooted up on the side of the road that's fresh. But this is all pretty high and dry country. I'm just on my way to the next pond. So I'm not going to show you guys every single spot that I hit, but let's just say where I'm going to run today, by as the crow flies, is probably a distance of 10 miles between them. But of course I'm zigzagging in and around, and there's probably there's probably about 10 spots overall that I'm looking to hit, that are going to let me know. I'm going to be able to figure out pretty quickly if there's hogs in the area or not. If I'm hunting a spot that's got a lot of wet spots, like the whole thing's wet. Some of these management areas are basically just one big swamp, and there's like ditches along the side of the road where they've actually dug to build the road up bigger so the roads stay mostly dry, and then those ditches are just filled with water all the time. In that case, hogs can be just absolutely anywhere, so you can drive around and look for sign, and that helps quite a bit. And honestly, well, you get tired of walking after a while. A lot of those places, as long as you're allowed to drive the roads, if you want to just drive a while, a lot of times you'll see just hogs run across the road. There's times that we'll get tired out from the morning hunt, walking a couple miles, and then just say, you know what, let's take a couple hours and we'll drive around looking for sign. And then sure enough, hogs will run across the road. In fact, there was one day that Donnie Wilkerson and I were hunting, and we decided we were going to go to lunch, go into town for lunch, and we got in his truck and started driving, and we didn't drive very far, and we could look up way on up the road and see that there were hogs out feeding right along the edge of the road. So then we stopped and ended up going up and shooting one of them. And then that same day we came back in after getting lunch and everything taken care of, came back in and ended up finding 2 other groups just driving back through to go back to where my vehicle was parked. So sometimes you can just drive around and look, but either way, you're going to want to cover a lot of territory until you find good sign. Then you can spend a little bit of time slowing down and then concentrating on that really good sign. But remember, just because there was good sign there from yesterday doesn't mean that those hogs are here today, especially because on public land, especially in an area like this where these pockets are kind of few and far between, hunters come in and then they push it out fairly frequently. All right, sometimes you hit these big ponds and they're relatively easy access, and what most people do is they're just going to pull right in and park at the closest spot because you can't drive any further. You're not supposed to anyway. They'll come around, look right around here, and sometimes there is hog rooting and then they'll hunt. But more times than not, if you're pretty serious about really trying to find them, you can't really just stop here. You have to walk the full way around the pond, because just because there's no sign here doesn't mean that there's not a group of hogs living on a brushy spot on that side or down here. So you have to be able to walk the whole thing. And some of this stuff, they're really quick stops. You just be able to run in, check real fast. Every spot's going to be different. And then you're going to have some that you may need to walk 2 or 3 miles to really cover it. But oftentimes those are the other places that people don't want to go, and that's probably where you're going to end up finding hogs. So don't be afraid to put on quite a few miles, not only in the truck but also on your feet. You can tell that this is some old rooting in here. It's really covered up, but you'll see that all these leaves are stirred up really bad. But that doesn't mean it's hogs. It could be, but it could be deer in here after leftover acorns. Could be squirrels, turkeys even. Very likely that would be turkeys. Yeah, that looks like turkey scratching right there. So there's probably turkeys in here just raking the leaves. Typically, this is, you can see all the dirt, but it's old. It's been turned over a long time ago. It's not even remotely fresh. And again, if you get a chance to come down by water, then come on down and look for tracks. Look for specifically hog tracks that are fresh. And lots of armadillo sign. There's raccoons. Again, like armadillo rooting, some of these places are just tore up with armadillos. But if there's hogs in the area, especially at night, they're typically gonna run some of these edges. They're gonna come down to drink, and they're gonna be looking for food. They do a lot of the same stuff that the raccoons do, to where the raccoons, you'll see, if you can see their tracks, I don't know if you can or not, but they're just running up and down this edge. They're always looking for something. Well, hogs will do the same thing. Well, there's a great example. We know there's hogs in here. There have been at some point, but that one's a little too seasoned, isn't it? But again, there have been in here, but they're not currently. I don't see any fresh tracks, but we're going to continue on around this pond, and I'm where I'm parked is clear over on that other side, so it's kind of this really long pond. So I'm almost around this end. I'll walk that side up, and maybe we'll find some fresh sign. But again, it's easy to come walking along and look at this and go, oh man, this is hog rooting. This is all armadillos. You'll always notice it by the little nose pokes, and then they got like 3-toed tracks on them. Don't get distracted by the armadillo. Yeah, this is all hog rooting here. It's not crazy fresh, but there's definitely some in this area. Whether they've been pushed out or not, I don't know, but this is a good spot to be looking for more fresh sign. So this is when the water line was up. This was an old wallow, and this is all old rooting. So you can't get excited about old rooting, it doesn't mean anything. But down here by the water's edge, that's looking a lot more fresh. There's a turkey track in it, hog track. That's a lot more fresh. This stuff here, this is old. You can tell there's a big difference in the color. And look how many leaves are laying in it. So many leaves. You want to come in here, you're looking for fresh leaves laying in it. And there's only a couple. There's not much. Now a lot of these are old and a lot are fresh too. So we've got deer and hog tracks. Hog rooting. Look at this right here. That's pretty darn fresh there. That's pretty darn fresh. So we're on the complete other end, like the far, far end. We would be around the corner and parked over there. So we're about as far away from the parking area as possible. And this is where we found the best sign. So sometimes, like I said, you show up to a spot and it doesn't look like there's much going on. And then when you get around the other side where most people don't want to go, that's when you start finding this stuff. So now I'm going to continue on around and I'm going to mark this in my head that this is a great spot to come back to and check probably this evening. It's still early enough we could find some, but this would be a great spot to check first thing in the morning or in the evening, and then listening for them walking around eating in the woods. They'll come down to the water at some point, but you're not just going to hunt them by the water. You'll be walking, listening up in the woods, and then trying to go make a play. We might still find some now. When you start getting into some of these thicker palmetto heads and stuff, that's where you might find them to be bedding down underneath stuff. So if you go through some really tight stuff, slow down, keep an arrow on the string. You can listen for them too, but if they're bedded, you're going to be trying to look under places that are hidden and shady and all that, and just look for black bodies for the most part, usually black. I mean, they can be brown or any color, but statistically most are black, and those are the ones you're going to see first. You can see it's all rooted up along that edge. I thought it was something else, but it's ducks or birds out on the pond. And there's some squirrels back in here messing with me too. But a lot of this, it's not like fresh rooting, but they're pushing around. I mean, there's definitely hogs in the area. They've been in here within the last few days, if not right now. I don't want to walk through the bedding area because there's no sense in blowing them out. I'm listening for them to be moving. This is, again, the type of place I'm going to come back and hunt this tonight or tomorrow morning, but I'll keep putting time in here. But I'm going to be stealthy, coming in and out and waiting till I hear them or see them, and then make a move. If I heard them in there, then I would know to go. And how about how far they are? But if they're bedded up and I blow them out, that's not doing us any good. I just found them, guys. I just found the hogs. They're in front of me about maybe 70, 80 yards. So I saw a black one and a spotted one, but they're right up here. And we're just going to take our time. They're working up this way. Oh, there's more. There's another spotted one. There's a bunch of them. There's a white one. Found them first morning on public land. That's awesome. Let's see if we can get in for a shot. There's a lot more than I realized. So I gotta go slow. There's some over here too. There's a whole string of them. Yeah, there's a bunch of hogs in here. So far the wind's okay, but it could swirl. But I gotta look around real sharp. There's a little boar. I'm not really sure which ones to go for. We got some over here too. I think there's one that might know something's up. Yeah, there's a bunch of hogs in here. Holy cow. There's one looking right at me. Okay. It's a boar, yeah. These are all moving in this way. I don't know if the wind swirled. I'm just gonna have to play it out a second. There's no need to rush. Closing in, these little ones are coming by. I'm just not where I need to be. If I was up there about 20 more yards, I'd be perfect for this sow coming. But these other ones are still ahead of me. I can't move fast. Here she comes. Oh, there's deer over there too. That's funny. You see, she's just a little too far. That's a long shot. The wind's starting to get funny though. But that's... I made a terrible shot. I tried to... Crap. Man, she caught me. She caught me at like the last second. I was gonna have a perfect shot, so she knew something was up. I knew I had to make that shot then. And I had to kind of twist my body back to make the shot to clear the branch. I mean, that's hunting, I guess. It was a good opportunity, and I may still get her. But that was really far back. That was really far back. It's one of those shots where You either get lucky and get into something good, or you're not going to get her. I think I'm going to give it a second. I'm going to wait here. Just let everything kind of cool down. I'm going to mark this spot, and then I'm going to continue that way and see if I can get back on them. Man, I hate that though. That was a good opportunity, public land, but you know what? It happens. And sometimes you got to take the shot you're given, and I felt okay about it right up until I was about ready to let go of the string. But yeah, just having, when I have to get out of my normal stance just a little bit, it makes a big difference. At least get over here and see if I can't find some blood and stuff to sit on, mark the spot, and then I may just continue after them for a little bit. I put in a pretty good amount of time looking for this sow, but without a doubt she was hit back in the gut. Sometimes you get lucky and you still hit something good. They bleed a lot. You got a good trail to follow. Sometimes, like this one, it plugs up and there's just absolutely no trail to follow. So we're only about 100 and 150 yards from the border of private land. I combed that whole area really well, and without a blood trail to follow, once you get onto that private land, if you had a blood trail, without a doubt, I would contact a landowner or just continue to trail it. But at this point, there's not a whole lot you can do. As Clint Eastwood said, you know, the buzzards and the worms, they got to eat too. And I would love to be the one to eat this sow, but sometimes it doesn't work out. I'm going to talk to you guys later in the film about this specifically, but as of right now, put in a lot of work. We got to chalk this one up to a loss. Like I said, we'll talk about it later. The hunt continues. I want to continue to teach you guys as much as I can about hunting hogs on public land. So the hunt continues. Well, yesterday didn't go super smooth, as you can imagine. And I went home. Didn't really think a whole lot of it, but I went home and I took some practice shots. And man, almost all my shots were pulling hard left like that. You know, I don't try to overthink it and overdo it, but I was like, you know, I just want to go home and shoot a couple, feel good about myself, no big deal. And I was shooting terrible. So then you start getting into a little bit of a panic and freak out mode. You're like, what's going on? What's going on? Is it my arrows? You know, what am I doing different? And it's like I had to stop and realize it's not my arrows. I know that. I've tested all of these out fully, and there's nothing wrong with the bow. I've killed a lot of animals with that bow. It's none of those things. It's the guy that's behind the bow and the arrow, and I needed to figure it out. And I spent quite a while thinking about it and shooting some arrows, and I would get some good shots and some bad shots. And then eventually I realized what I was doing was dropping my bow arm, and not specifically, not like shooting it and dropping it, which I'm probably doing that, but instead of following through and holding the bow up for the shot, which it shoots, you know, it moves when you shoot anyway, but instead of holding it up, I was throwing it to the side. I'd have this like full extension this way after the shot, and it would kick my arrow to the left, shooting hard left. And I was like, okay. So then I was like, relax, pick a spot, and then follow through. When I followed through, dimes, just dropping them perfectly. And it's like, I guarantee you that that's what happened yesterday. Is I was focused in on making that shot, and then she looked up and kind of saw me, and it just blew all of my focus. And then she was moving behind that tree, and I knew the opportunity for me to get a shot was getting smaller and smaller. I kind of had to lean back just like a little bit to shoot, and it was almost like I was just trying to get the arrow out. And I guarantee you, I pulled my bow arm. Guarantee it. So I ended up shooting quite a bit yesterday, and then even swapped back and forth between that bow and then this bow, which you guys I'm sure have seen this one a lot, and it's one of my favorites. And it was really nice to just hold this one in my hand again, and it just felt so fun and natural. I was like, well, I shoot them both pretty much exactly the same, so I just decided to go ahead, swap bows out just for fun. It wasn't the bow's fault, it was my fault. But I think we've solved the problem a little bit, And I just got to get back to fundamentals. All right, so I'm off doing an evening hunt and scouting and starting to run out of some spots in this area. And I do still have one or two I can check maybe tomorrow, but there were other vehicles parked there. I don't know if they were hog hunting or not, but I just left. So I didn't get to check those. And one of them's a pretty good walk, so we might be able to find something there still. But kind of in a little bit of a desperation, I got out my maps again, like just Google Maps, and was really searching the area just to jog my memory if there was a spot that I forgot to check. And I did remember that one of the spots that I previously checked and I didn't see anything, when I walk all the way around to the back side, which I got pretty close, but I didn't go all the way around, but if you continue to go, there's actually a couple really small pond pockets back there. And I was like, you know, I didn't check those. And there could very easily be sign there, as we saw on the other pond where there's no sign anywhere except in one little corner, and that's where we found the hogs. So I'm going back to recheck this spot and go further and exhaust that. And then after all the years that I have hunted this place, hard to believe, but I actually found a new pond that I've never been to. I used to think that it was on, I kind of knew it was there, but I thought it was on private property, and I never turned because it looked like it was like a driveway to a residence or something. And so I'm sure it used to be private property at some point, because a lot of it used to be, but I've never been down there before. But it turns out that it is on public, and it's a pretty good drive down into the woods, and I've never been there, but it sure enough looks like it would have water in it and like a sinkhole basin like many of these places. So I'm going to check that out this evening, and then that's going to give me an idea whether if I can find any either in here or in the new spot. And if I can't, then we'll be going right back to where I got on those other ones, but it's now been several days. So who knows if they're going to be there, and if they are, maybe they're settled down, maybe they're back, maybe they're pushed out. I don't know, but right now that's my best option of where to go in the morning, unless I find something better tonight. But we're still hunting because we might find them. You know, it never hurts to take out your blunt and do just a little practice shot on a pine cone, just to loosen everything up and get the aim on and the confidence going. Yep, that would have done it. That would have been just fine. Alright, that's pretty fresh. It rained hard last night, and it looks like it might have been done while it was raining. But there's not much for leaves in it. Right there, that's pretty fresh. See how fresh the dirt is kicked up on that. So they're not going to be terribly far. Yeah, we're getting into a lot more fresh stuff now. Further I go around, we're getting a lot more of it and a lot more fresh. This is all fresh since last night. So when I came through last night, I found that fresh stuff a little bit up there and right here. All of this rooting is all brand new from last night. You can tell there's not a fresh leaf in it, and this wasn't here. But I just covered all of this, and they're not here, and there's really nowhere to bed, so they're going to be bedding somewhere else. And there's a lot thicker spots on the other end, so they're not necessarily just going to bed down really close to where they're feeding. It might be a couple 100 yards away, so we're going to check that out. All right, let this be a lesson to you. Always go further than you think that you need to. I got lazy on my first assessment in scouting this on the first day, and I thought, well, I can see the other side, so that's probably good. I don't see much going on. I stopped about 100 yards short of where the really good sign started, and honestly, I think that's what a lot of people do. And what's also amazing is I haven't seen any fresh people sign in here either, except for up here close to the front. I think they're doing the same thing. They come right in, check out the very first spot around the pond, they don't see any fresh sign, and then they leave. And if they go all the way to the darkest corners, then all of a sudden there's a ton of fresh sign. So it would be almost impossible to do a stalk in there tonight because that whole place is just dry with leaves. It's like walking on potato chips. So they would almost have to work their way to me. And I'm gonna hit this spot first thing in the morning when the dew has kind of softened the leaves a little bit, so then I can work around that whole area. And first thing in the morning, I ought to be able to see them or hear them somewhere. It's kind of open in there, so it's gonna be hard to get close, but we're gonna make a go of it. And then once I check this area out first thing in the morning, then we'll start heading off to the spot that I got on them the other day. And I still have maybe an hour of daylight, so I'm gonna hurry up and get down and check out that spot that I've never been to before and make sure that I walk extra far. Man, this is looking great. I love getting on hogs and tall weeds and grass. And I'm trying to decide if this is some hog root in here. I've never been here before. This is that new spot. There's definitely water here. And this is the type of stuff they love to bed in. They could be in here right now. There's old pig tracks in here, but I'm not seeing any fresh ones, not in this spot. We'll keep working around. That's probably a good explanation right there. Hard to say how old it is, but it doesn't look very old. So I wouldn't be surprised that there were hogs in here and someone just beat me to them a week or so ago. It's a good looking area. I'll keep this in mind for sure. I'll keep looking around, but I think we are just late to the party in here. That was very promising. Unfortunately, I was late to the party there. Somebody had clearly been in there, but it looks like the hogs were there, you know, within maybe the last week or so. But so had somebody else, and they're not in there anymore. And it's funny that I didn't find the spot, but you can tell that a lot of other folks know about this one. So it's just kind of funny that I'm late to the party all the way around on this one. But it's promising, and I'm going to keep this one in mind for another year, and I'll be able to add this to my list of places to come back and check. Well, I was going to head out and hunt this morning, but we got a good rainstorm coming through, and it's probably going to get a little bit more challenging. I really only have like 2 more days to hunt, and we went from like 80 to it's going to be 35 in the morning. So a huge temperature swing, and a lot of times when it starts getting into the 40s or 30s in Florida, the hogs start bunching up and they don't want to get up and move until the sun gets up. It gets a little bit warmer. So I'm not sure if I'll be out there right at the crack of daylight. I might anyway, but it might be a little later till they get to moving. But I mean, I've got a couple more days left, so I might as well get after it. But yeah, I probably should have just went this morning, but they said it was going to do a lot of raining, and I could have gone. It really wasn't that bad, but now it's set in, so it is what it is. There's a hog right on the edge. So I got on this lone boar first thing in the morning, and he is just not moving. And it's turned into a 15-20 minute stalk of him hanging out right in the wide open. And the wind was good for a while, but as I know all too often, the wind doesn't hold out forever. And I just had a feeling that eventually we would get a gust that would lick up the back of me and blow right to him. And that's exactly what happened. Damn wind got me. See, this all wasn't here last week. That one lone boar, he just kind of moved in here. I don't know where he came from, but this wasn't here last week. But he was down here feeding. Must have been 15, 20 minutes. I stood there inching closer, but the wind got me. The wind was great right up until it wasn't. You know, I really considered not showing that I shot and lost one, Not because I was worried about what people would say about it, but more so because I always want to make sure that we paint primitive hunting in a light. But that could happen in any type of hunting. In fact, it does. It happens to modern hunters and rifle hunters. It's just a part of hunting. And I had to realize also that the haters are going to hate no matter what. So I'm not worried about that. But for the folks that are genuinely following along and they're interested in primitive archery and interested in learning and hunting, I would be doing them a great disservice by painting this picture of pure perfection. Because even if you're talking about guys like Tom Brady or Patrick Mahomes, they're getting paid millions and millions of dollars to be the absolute best at it, and they still miss passes. They still fumble. They still lose games. It happens. There is no such thing as pure perfection. And so if you're going to hunt, you're going to have missed shots. You're going to have shots where you shoot one and you lose it and you don't recover it. And I've met people along the way that have talked about, well, they got into hunting, they got up in a tree stand, a deer came by, they shot it, they looked for it for 3 days, they didn't find it. They concluded that they were terrible hunters and that they had no business being out in the woods and it wasn't for them, that they didn't have the skill. And the reality is, especially when you're just getting started, that happens to everybody. And it's important that those just getting started know that I lose stuff too. I miss stuff too. There's hunts I go on and I don't see anything, I don't kill anything, and I've stuck with it over the years. And there's plenty of time that when we get into them, it almost feels like you can't miss, and you just keep bringing them home, and then you'll go through stints where you don't. That's normal hunting, and that's why it's called hunting. And that being said, I can promise you that it is still a heck of a lot better to be on the field playing and to have lost the game than to be somebody in the bleachers that yells you suck, because they're not even on the field. So I believe we're closing out this hunt. I still have tomorrow, and I may come back in the morning and give it one more go, but I have a feeling that we're closing it out without getting one. But the good news is I was able to show you guys how to find them and how to get on them on public land for yourself. And then I can show you that what I'm telling you works, because we got onto the hogs, we got opportunities. But hey, it's hunting. You come down here, maybe you'll get them, maybe you won't.